talk about the Earth, we should have been talking about the ocean. 2/3 of this globe is water. And what is the situation as per today, as far as the Norwegian continental shelf is concerned? It's a fascinating picture. This area is 6 times as large as the land area. And we have been given the authority to have a look and develop this area for eternity. Events and activities in the Norwegian petroleum sector over the last 50 years, they have forever, underlined forever, changed Norwegian lifestyle and the global role of the country.
These people have the guts to do this? Well, they had a background, mentioned already. In the 50s and 60s, we had a huge program in this country for hydropower developments. There are more than 1,000 dams all over the country, some of them huge concrete structures. We had the industrial plant, we had the Tromsø Bridge in 1960, at that time, a miracle of a bridge built by Norwegian, designed and built in Norway. So we had already capacity and competence to do large, complex projects. On the right, we see a proposed suspension bridge on floating pontoons for the largest Sognefjord crossing. And on the bottom, you see the submerged floating tunnel, which is another concept for crossing wide fjords underneath the surface. And all these are existing ideas and developments. They will happen sooner or later, and involves an awful lot of what I would call condip technology, offshore technology.
How could they be so wrong?
It was very easy for them to be wrong because they were not petroleum geologists in the Norwegian Geological Survey. They were ore geologists. The industry in Norway was very dependent on metal ores. There was no petroleum geologist in the Geological Survey. So in effect, they didn't know what they were talking about.
All the oil that we've found is on the continental shelf.
Yes.
There's nothing on land. Why is that? Why don't we find anything right below us here?
Yes, the answer is there's only one place on mainland Norway where there's sedimentary rocks if you ignore the glacial deposits, glacial moraines. And that's on a small island in the northern part of Lofoten called Andøya. And there are thick sediments of Jurassic Cretaceous, and they're there simply because there was a sedimentary basin there in the Jurassic and Cretaceous, and that survived the erosion from the Ice Age, which happened just recently. So the rest of Scandinavia was scraped clean. For the Norwegian shelf and the Norwegian petroleum industry, our main source rock, meaning our main sedimentary rock that's rich in microplankton fossils, is late Jurassic, from 145 to 155 million years old. Late Jurassic. That's where most of our oil and gas is coming from.
And so far, we have drilled in the southern parts and altogether some 1,500 wells. 100 of them up in the Barents Sea. Only 100. And we can only assume what is likely to happen when we have, let's say, 100 times 2 or 100 times 10.
No matter where you're working in the world, if you're working in petroleum geology, in a petroleum company, you're either directly or indirectly trying to find porous rock. That's the only thing that can hold liquids, or gas. And porous rocks, as far as Northwest Europe is concerned, most of it is lying in delta deposits. So that's sand that's dumped by rivers as they enter the ocean. So most of our reserves are in this kind of environment. So now the oil can go up and it reaches this sand and it's very happy there, so it just goes right in. And it can't go any higher because of the source rock up here, which is just functioning as a barrier, not as a source. Here it's functioning as a source because it's hot. Here it's cold, so it just functions as an impermeable barrier. So here we have the late Jurassic source rock, down deep, over 100 degrees. Here we have the same formation here and here. And so this has been faulted down through extension. And so here the source rock is generating oil because of the temperature. Here it's not. So it's very expensive to take a core. And even if it was cheap, you wouldn't throw it away, because this is valuable information. This is the most information you know about at this depth, in this case at 2.6 kilometers beneath the sea surface.
What can the archive tell us about the past?
Well, the Norwegian Oil and Gas Archive, they collect records from both the oil and gas companies and the state agencies that deal with questions concerning the oil and gas business. And we get the records from all of these. And nobody knows the whole truth, but when we get accurate documents that were made when the things happened from various persons and various companies and institutions, we get a pretty good picture of what happened. For instance, the Alexander Kielland accident, which was the biggest Norwegian accident with many people killed. From this incident, we have the report from the police that did the investigation, which you can see here. Many boxes with lots of documents. Of course, this is not open to the public yet, but it will be eventually. But in addition to this, we have the records from the company that owned the rig, and we have the records from the company that operated the field. And this all together makes a very good picture that helps us understand what happened and to see things from various angles. And that is what makes archives so interesting.
Can you tell us about this accident?
Yes, I was just starting the service at that time, and this was actually my first mission, my first real scramble. So it was indeed special. As soon as he arrived, we went out in the sea, and it was bad weather, bad visibility, but we found the accident place, and we could see the platform has capsized, and we could see the legs of the platform out of the water. We could of course and so on, but we did not find anyone alive. They had been rescued before we arrived. But it was indeed special, and I thought to myself, it can't be anything worse than this. End of the 70s and also at the beginning of the 80s, there were more not so good routines in health and security environment, and they did not have so good and strict procedures concerning safety as they have today. It was more a bit like in the Old West and a bit more relaxed attitude to safety, and of course that could have very bad consequences at that time. Today it's much better.
I have always thought that working in the oil and gas industry is dangerous. Geir Svaroperaut is professor in safety science. He has been working with health risk in the petroleum sector. We went to him to hear his opinions about the situation.
It's really true that there's been a great improvement in the safety situation in the petroleum activities in the North Sea during 30 to 40 years.
Considerations for the environment has always been an integrated part of our petroleum activity. Emissions are regulated by the Petroleum Act, the CO2 Tax Act, and the Special Tax Act. There are no place on this globe where the companies pay that much in form of taxes related to emissions as in Norway. And each ton or cubic meter produced here contains, as far as emission is concerned, roughly 50%. To Norway, however, it was the start of an exceptional development that has led to an eternal wealth of more than 7,000 billion Norwegian kroner in the petroleum fund as per day. If you take 5 million like we have, if you take 7 divided by 5, that's 1.4. Behind each of you here sitting here, there is a wealth fund of 1.4 million Norwegian. Behind every inhabitant. This is going to be administered long-term for eternity.
That said, the small company of Zaptec, in the small city of Stavanger, in the small country of Norway, is world leader on this now. And it's quite romantic, quite maybe ironic, that it is oil and gas technology that saves an electric car. One of the projects that we have is to make a drill that can drill 10 meters down on Mars to search for life and water. And 10 meters, that doesn't sound like much, but remember that the solar system record of Mars is 5 centimeters. So 10 meters in NASA exploration is wow. And they say now that when we meet the NASA people that we work with, they say it will be Norwegian technology that first kills alien life.
By combining politics, technology, geology, and research, we will be in this industry for generations.
The world changes all the time and very rapidly. And at the same time, the human mind is a very fragile thing. We don't remember what happened even a year ago. And also human life is very short. So we might live for another few decades and then we're gone. And nobody knows what happened if they didn't experience it themselves. And this is where records come in. Because when everything has disappeared and things are forgotten, they are still documented in the records. So for the Norwegian Oil and Gas Archive, it is our task to make sure that important records from the companies and from the state agencies and even from persons that have been working with oil and gas are kept so that you can study them in 10 years, in 100 years, or even in 1,000 years.